Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, Advanced English Listening Practice topic name is Why People Enjoy Challenges. And this is the deep dive, where we take the most complex ideas, pull out the essential knowledge, and deliver it straight to you.
Today we're tackling something that feels almost like a puzzle about human nature. If our brains are wired for efficiency, to save energy, why on earth do we go out of our way to find things that are incredibly difficult?
That is the core paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We deliberately choose the tough path. People sign up for things like ultramarathons, which are just punishing.
Or spend years, literally years, trying to master a violin.
Knowing full well how frustrating it's going to be. On the surface, it just doesn't make any sense, but it's something we all do.
It is, and that's really the mission for our deep dive today. We want to map out that internal drive, that strange love affair with difficulty. We're going to look at where it comes from, its evolutionary roots.
And what's happening in our brains, the actual chemistry behind it.
Exactly. And then we'll explore how challenges are maybe the most powerful catalyst we have for growth and for finding meaning in our lives.
So what we're really getting at is that challenges aren't just things to be endured. They're actually a necessary ingredient for a satisfying life. They're where we forge who we are.
That's the argument. So to really understand it, we have to start by looking way, way back. To get why we enjoy a good puzzle now, we have to imagine the world that shaped our ancestors. For them, solving complex problems wasn't a hobby.
It was life or death.
It was the only way to survive. So this drive for mastery, it's not new, it's ancient, it's practically written into our genetic code.
So this whole thing didn't start as a recreational pursuit at all. It was an absolute existential need, forcing us to constantly get smarter, to level up our ingenuity.
Think about what early humans were up against every single day. Survival was never a given. And it took this really complex set of skills, both physical and cognitive. It was so much more than just, reacting to a threat.
We tend to think of it in very simple terms, like you said, run from a predator, find some berries. But it was so much more sophisticated than that.
Oh, without a doubt. Just take the challenge of hunting large game. That wasn't just about strength. It was. It was a massive strategic and cooperative project.
A team effort.
A huge team effort. Physically, yes, you needed endurance, you needed skill. But cognitively, you had to anticipate where an animal would be days from now. You had to plan logistics. You had to communicate silently with your group.
And innovate your tools on the fly.
Under immense pressure. Every single successful hunt was the result of mastering this incredibly complex system of interconnected problems.
And what about gathering? We often see that as the simpler side of things, but I imagine it was just as complex in its own way.
It was a massive test of memory and really botanical science. You had to have this deep, intricate knowledge of plants. Which ones could you eat? Which were medicine?
And which ones were deadly?
Exactly. And not just that, but when they were in season and where to find them. That required incredible spatial memory, patience, a keen eye for detail. Even building a shelter required a kind of intuitive physics, understanding materials and weather.
It sounds like this constant high-stakes problem solving was the direct engine of our cognitive development. The evolutionary pressure wasn't just for the strongest, but for the smartest, most forward-thinking brains.
That's the absolute key takeaway. This relentless struggle is what pushed the human brain to expand. The individuals who could plan, who could innovate a better spear point, who could learn from a mistake instead of repeating it.
They were the ones who survived.
They thrived. And they passed on that capacity for complex thought. Our brain is this incredible machine precisely because survival depended on it being able to anticipate, strategize, and learn under pressure.
So let's bring that to today. That urge I feel to, learn a new piece of software or finally figure out how to play a difficult song on the guitar. That's not just a hobby.
It's the direct descendant of those primal instincts. We call it the ancestral echo.
The ancestral echo. I like that.
That deep, visceral satisfaction you get when you finally get it, when you crack the code. That feeling is tapping into the very same ancient reward pathways that reinforced survival behavior millions of years ago. It's the triumph of figuring things out, just applied to modern, abstract problems.
And that brings us to the reward system itself. The brain has to have a way to encourage us to do all this hard work.
Oh, absolutely. The whole system is basically rigged to favor effort. When we overcome a challenge, especially one that requires a lot of focus, the brain flags that activity as beneficial for our long-term survival and capability.
So it's not just a pat on the back, it's a chemical signal.
It's a powerful chemical signal. And the main player here is dopamine. In that primal context, dopamine wasn't just about feeling good after a success. It was about making the hard work itself feel appealing. It's a reinforcement that tags the effort, the planning, the practice as valuable.
So it motivates us to do it again.
It ensures we're motivated to repeat that beneficial, challenge-seeking behavior. The brain is essentially telling you, that was tough, but the skill you gained is incredibly useful. Let's make the pursuit of that feeling enjoyable so you keep doing it.
That's fascinating. So this system built over millennia is why we don't just endure challenges, we actively go looking for them. We might not be hunting mammoths.
But we're hunting a PhD or promotion or the solution to a complex coding problem. It's the same machinery, the same deep-seated need, just redirected for our modern hunts.
Okay, so that foundation is incredibly clear. The evolutionary history explains the why. Now let's get into the weeds of the immediate payoff. What's happening inside our heads that makes struggle feel, well, good?
This is a crucial shift, isn't it? We're moving from a survival imperative to what we call intrinsic motivation. Our brains are not passive. They crave stimulation, novelty, and that feeling of mastery. And engaging with difficulty sets off this whole chemical cascade that reinforces the behavior right away.
And you mentioned dopamine as the central player. Let's dive a bit deeper there. We think of it as a happiness chemical, but it's more about motivation, right?
That's a key distinction that researchers now really understand. Dopamine is the motivation chemical. A huge surge is released in anticipation of achieving a goal. It's not the reward itself, it's the thing that gets you to work for the reward.
So it's the chemical that gets you to put your running shoes on in the first place, even when you don't feel like it.
Exactly. It creates that drive, that focus to invest the effort. And then, as you start making progress, the feedback loop kicks in, the power of what we call incremental victories.
So it's not one big dopamine hit at the finish line.
No, not at all. You get these smaller, consistent surges every time you hit a micro goal. You run a faster mile than last week, you finish a difficult chapter in a textbook, you fix one little bug in a piece of code.
And those small wins are everything for keeping momentum.
They are absolutely critical. Each one of those little successes triggers another dopamine release, which literally strengthens the neural pathways associated with that effort. Your brain is learning in real time, hey, this persistence is paying off with small, reliable rewards, and that's what fuels you to keep going.
The piano example really brings this to life. The real joy isn't just picturing the final recital.
The true sustainable enjoyment is in the journey. It's the small victory of finally getting your fingers to play a difficult scale smoothly, or mastering a chord progression that felt impossible just last week. Each of those little successes is a chemical stamp of approval, encouraging you to tackle the next slightly harder thing.
And this leads to what many people describe as the absolute peak of enjoying a challenge. The flow state.
Ah, yes, flow.
This is a concept from the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He described it as the optimal human experience. It's that state where you are so completely absorbed in an activity that you lose all track of time. Your sense of self just melts away.
People call it being in the zone, but what are the conditions for that to happen? It requires a very delicate balance. It happens in what we call the sweet spot, where the difficulty of the challenge perfectly matches your current skill level. If it's too easy, you get bored.
And if it's way too hard, you get anxious and frustrated.
Precisely. The challenge has to be just high enough that it demands your full, undivided attention. The difficulty itself acts like a filter, blocking out all distractions and forcing your brain into this state of intense, effortless concentration. Whether you're an athlete, a musician, or a programmer debugging code.
The enjoyment is in the grappling. It's in the process, not just the end result.
That's the essence of flow. And once you emerge from that state and you've conquered the challenge, the benefits become part of your psychological foundation. Which brings us to self-efficacy.
So this is about the lasting impact.
Right. Self-efficacy is a term from psychologist Albert Bandura, and it's simply the belief in your own ability to succeed at a specific task. When you navigate something difficult, it does more than just feel good for a moment. It fundamentally increases that belief.
You're internalizing the message, I did a hard thing, therefore I can do hard things.
And that is incredibly powerful, and it's cumulative. Every single challenge you overcome, from learning to ride a bike as a kid to launching a major project at work, it's like you're depositing currency into your self-efficacy bank account. It builds this really robust psychological framework that empowers you to take on even bigger challenges in the future.
That feeling of competence and agency, that in itself must be a huge motivator.
It is. That internal sense of I am capable is one of the most satisfying human feelings, and it pushes us to keep seeking that next level of difficulty.
And this idea feeds directly into the growth mindset.
It does. This is Carol Dweck's incredible work. She contrasts two mindsets. The fixed mindset believes your intelligence and abilities are static, they're set in stone. So for that person, a challenge is a threat. It's a chance to fail and expose your limitations.
Whereas the growth mindset sees challenges as the main way to develop your skills.
Exactly. The growth mindset sees abilities as something you can cultivate through effort and strategy. So a challenge isn't a threat. It's an exciting opportunity to expand and learn. The enjoyment isn't about proving you're smart. It's about the process of becoming smarter.
And a huge part of that is how you look at failure.
It completely reframes failure. For a growth mindset, setbacks aren't failures. They're just feedback. They're valuable data. The joy comes from the certainty that you are becoming more capable and more resilient through the effort, no matter what the immediate result is.
And underneath all of this, there's a simpler truth. Our brains just get bored. They crave this kind of stimulation.
Our brains hunger for novelty and complexity. If we just sit in a state of ease, our brains are underutilized. Challenges force us to think critically, strategically, creatively. They literally forge new neural connections.
A true mental workout.
It is. Think of the satisfaction of solving a really tough Sudoku puzzle or planning a complex strategy in a board game like chess. The pleasure is in using your mind to its full capacity. It keeps us sharp, it keeps us engaged, and that is inherently pleasurable.
Okay, so the underlying reasons are pretty consistent, but the way we actually choose to challenge ourselves is incredibly diverse. These challenges show up in every part of human life.
That's right. And the specific type of challenge you choose often changes the flavor of the reward, even if the basic brain chemistry is the same. We can really break it down across a whole spectrum of human activity. Hashtag 3A, physical challenges, mastering the form.
Let's start with the most obvious one, physical challenges. This is all about pushing the body past its perceived limits.
Endurance sports are the classic example. Marathons, triathlons, these are acts of self-imposed hardship. The enjoyment isn't about comfort. It's about the triumph of your will over your body's protests. The reward is that immense feeling of accomplishment, of breaking through a wall you thought was solid.
And there's a specific chemical cocktail for that too, isn't there?
There is. That prolonged, intense effort releases endorphins, which leads to the famous runner's high. It's basically the body's own reward system for pushing through pain, making sure you're motivated to stay strong and resilient.
Then you have challenges that are more about mastery and skill, not just pure endurance.
Things like mountaineering. That isn't just a fitness test. It's a high-stakes puzzle. It demands incredible planning, knowledge of weather, technical skill with equipment, and real courage to manage fear. The reward is in mastering yourself and a formidable natural obstacle.
Or something like martial arts, which is all about discipline and clear progression.
Exactly. Martial arts give you such clear, tangible feedback. The belt system provides these objective markers that you are making progress, that you are mastering a technique. The satisfaction there comes from the pure dedication it takes to refine a skill, which requires intense mental focus just as much as physical ability. Hashtag 3B. Intellectual challenges, sharpening the mind.
Okay, shifting gears, let's talk about intellectual challenges. For a lot of people, this is the most compelling type of difficulty, grappling with complex ideas.
You see this in formal education, of course. Pursuing a PhD in, say, theoretical physics, it involves just wrestling with huge amounts of complex, abstract information. The satisfaction there is in expanding your own understanding of the world.
And then there are the applied intellectual challenges, where you're building something functional, like coding.
Right. Coding and engineering demands such intense logical reasoning and creative problem solving. And the reward is that incredible moment when a complex piece of code you've been fighting with for days finally runs perfectly. It's the feeling of creating a perfect, elegant solution.
And we can't forget about structured play. Games.
Games like chess or Go are the perfect playground for the mind. The stakes are low, but the cognitive demands are enormous. You're planning, anticipating, strategizing, and the reward is that aha moment. That flash of insight when you solve a difficult puzzle is just incredibly addictive. Hashtag 3C. Creative challenges, bringing the imagined to life.
Creative work is a unique kind of challenge, isn't it? It's about taking something that only exists in your head and making it real.
It's a monumental challenge. Think about writing a novel. That's a marathon of sustained imagination and discipline over years. The joy is in the immersion and building a world from scratch, and the deep satisfaction of crafting a complete story out of nothing.
And the same goes for painting, or composing music.
The challenge there is all about translation. How do you take the vision in your mind and translate it onto a canvas or into a melody? It means grappling with technique, with form, with materials. The reward is the act of creation itself.
And what about innovation? Entrepreneurship. That seems to combine creativity with massive risk.
That might be one of the toughest domains. You're trying to solve problems that maybe no one has solved before. The satisfaction comes from seeing a need, coming up with a novel solution, and then navigating the incredibly complex process of bringing that idea to life and seeing it actually make an impact. #TAG3D. Emotional and social challenges, navigating the human landscape.
These are the challenges a lot of us try to avoid, but they often lead to the most profound growth. They're all about navigating vulnerability and human dynamics.
Absolutely. Take a personal growth challenge, like conquering a fear of public speaking. It's terrifying for so many people. The preparation is awful, it's nerve-wracking, but the feeling after you successfully give that presentation, it's this huge rush of confidence and connection.
And then there are the ongoing subtle challenges, like managing a team or navigating a difficult relationship.
Those require such a sophisticated skill set: empathy, emotional intelligence, patience. The satisfaction there is often in fostering understanding, in building something harmonious, whether it's a family or a productive team at work.
There was a great example that combines a few of these: learning a new language by immersing yourself in a foreign country.
Oh, that's the ultimate challenge stack. It's intellectually demanding. It requires intense social vulnerability. You have to be willing to make mistakes and sound foolish, and it requires emotional resilience. But the reward is just extraordinary. You unlock an entire new culture. #3E. Existential challenges. Finding meaning.
So we come to the deepest level, the challenges that life often forces on us, the ones that demand a total reevaluation of everything.
These are things like recovering from a major illness or coping with a profound loss. These events force you to look inward. They strip away all the superficial stuff. And the reward, though it is won at a terrible cost, is often a kind of radical clarity and a discovery of an inner strength you never knew you had.
And then there's the challenge of finding a purpose bigger than yourself: volunteering, activism.
Right. Tackling huge systemic problems. The difficulty there is persevering when the odds feel impossible. The satisfaction comes from knowing you're making a meaningful contribution, from connecting your effort to something transcendent.
And finally, the most personal challenge of all: self-actualization.
This is the ongoing, lifelong project of trying to become the best version of yourself. Breaking bad habits, living by your values. It requires constant self-awareness and effort. And the joy isn't in reaching a final destination, but in the process of continuous growth itself. So we've established that we're driven to seek out challenges everywhere. But the reason that drive is so persistent is because the benefits aren't just fleeting, they are truly transformative. They permanently upgrade our psychological hardware.
Let's start with the big one: resilience and grit. We hear these words all the time, but what do they really mean in this context?
Resilience is your ability to bounce back from difficulty, to adapt. But it's more than just bouncing back to where you were. Often you bounce forward. You don't just survive the setback, you come out of it wiser, stronger, having learned something crucial.
And how is that different from grit?
Grit is what keeps you going over the long haul. Resilience is how you handle a specific failure. Grit is the sustained passion and perseverance that keeps you working toward a long-term goal, day after day, even when it's boring or frustrating. And the enjoyment is in knowing you have that inner tenacity.
And that persistence naturally leads to acquiring new skills. A task is challenging precisely because you don't yet have the skills to do it easily.
Exactly. Whether you're learning to code or troubleshooting a car engine or taking a hard class, the process forces you to develop new competencies. And the pleasure here is so tangible. You can see yourself becoming more capable, more versatile. It's the joy of watching your own potential expand.
Which in turn has to have a massive impact on your self-confidence.
It's the most powerful feedback loop. The experience creates this internal narrative. Wow, if I could handle that, what else am I capable of? Overcoming challenges strengthens that inner conviction.
It changes your internal monologue from "I can't" to "Okay, how can I?"
It really does. It gives you this deep empirical proof of your own ability to perform under pressure. And that reduces so much anxiety about whatever challenges are coming next.
Challenges also seem to force a change in perspective. They shake us out of our ruts.
They are the great clarifier. When you're pushed outside your comfort zone, you're forced to reevaluate your assumptions. Hardship has a way of stripping away all the noise and making you realize what truly matters.
That example of volunteering in another country comes to mind again. It must completely reshape your worldview.
It forces you to confront your own privilege, your own biases. It builds a deeper, more authentic empathy. In the same way, facing a personal tragedy can result in this hard-won wisdom about what's really important in life.
And finally, there's a social dimension to all of this. Going through a struggle with other people creates incredibly strong bonds.
Shared adversity is one of the most powerful glues for human connection. Think about a sports team coming from behind to win, or a startup team working through the night to meet a deadline.
You're in the trenches together.
You're in the trenches together. You build this deep sense of camaraderie, trust, and mutual respect that you just don't get from normal, everyday interaction. The enjoyment is profoundly social. It's the satisfaction of a collective victory. So challenges don't just change you, they change the relationships around you.
Okay, it's very clear that challenge is vital for a good life. But we have to talk about the flip side. There's a very thin line, isn't there, between a productive challenge and something that just grinds you down.
That boundary is absolutely critical to understand, because the relentless pursuit of difficulty, if you don't have self-awareness, can quickly turn from a growth opportunity into chronic stress and burnout. And when that happens, all the joy is gone. It's replaced by exhaustion and cynicism.
And burnout happens when the challenges are just too much, too frequent, too intense for too long without any chance to recover.
Burnout is that state of total exhaustion, mental, emotional, physical. A high achiever might love demanding projects, but if there are no boundaries, no recovery time, no autonomy, their drive eventually eats itself. The challenge is no longer seen as an opportunity, it just feels like a threat.
This brings us to a really important physiological distinction between good stress and bad stress. Eustress versus distress.
Right. Eustress is the good stress. It's what you feel before a big performance or during an exciting workout. It's positive, it's motivating, it sharpens your focus and boosts your performance. Eustress is what makes challenges feel good.
Because you feel like you can handle it.
You feel you have the resources to meet the demand. Distress, on the other hand, is the bad stress. It's debilitating. It happens when the demands of the situation feel like they vastly exceed your ability to cope. You feel helpless.
So the very same task could be a source of eustress for one person and distress for another.
Or for the same person in a different context. The crucial difference is your perception of control. If you're given a tough project, but you have the freedom to decide how to approach it and the support you need, that's eustress. You feel engaged.
But if that same project comes with an impossible deadline, no support, and a manager who micromanages you,
it immediately becomes distress. You feel powerless, and that's when the challenge becomes harmful, leading straight to frustration and burnout.
Another big trap here is tying your entire self-worth to the outcome.
Oh, this is a huge one. If the only thing that matters is the external result, the perfect score, the gold medal, then the whole process becomes this joyless, high-pressure grind. You devalue all the learning and growth that happened along the way.
It's like a fixed mindset, but applied to results.
It is. And if you fall short of that perfect outcome, the psychological damage can be devastating. It completely erases any benefit you might have gained. The pursuit has to be about the process.
So given all these risks, what are the strategies for engaging with challenges in a healthy, sustainable way?
First and most important is self-awareness. You have to learn to recognize your own limits. You have to know the signs, the chronic fatigue, the cynicism that tell you you're approaching that tipping point from growth into breakdown.
And then you need boundaries.
Boundaries are non-negotiable. You can't take on every single challenge at full speed. You have to prioritize. You have to learn to say no. The goal is progressive challenge, not a state of perpetual crisis.
And lastly, it's about keeping your focus on the process.
You have to consciously shift your focus away from just the final result. Value the effort, value the skills you developed, appreciate the journey. That mindset is what makes a life of challenge sustainable and, at the end of the day, genuinely enjoyable.
So we've covered the whole map, from our evolutionary past to the risks of burnout. The final piece is the practical side. How do we actively build a mindset that doesn't just tolerate difficulty, but actually seeks it out?
It really is a deliberate shift in perspective. You have to start seeing obstacles as invitations to grow. And the first strategy is simply learning to embrace discomfort.
That's the idea of the growth zone, isn't it? That slightly uncomfortable space just outside your comfort zone.
That's it, exactly. All real growth happens in that zone of temporary unease. So you have to consciously take on tasks that feel just a little bit out of reach. Volunteer for a presentation you feel nervous about. Try a recipe that looks complicated. Start a conversation you've been avoiding. That feeling of discomfort is a signal that you're in the right place to learn.
And to make that manageable, the goals you set need to be stretching, but not so big they become paralyzing.
That's finding the sweet spot again, just like with the flow state. You want goals that require real effort, but that you know are possible. It's about progressive challenge.
Not try to go from 0 to 100 overnight.
Right. You don't decide to run a marathon tomorrow. You start a training plan that gradually increases your mileage. You master one new function in a software program this week, not the entire manual. That structure is what keeps you motivated.
And for those really big goals, you have to break them down.
Incrementalism is key. A huge, overwhelming challenge becomes manageable when you break it into small, actionable steps. If you're writing a book, the goal isn't write a book. The goal for today is write 500 words.
And those small victories give you that constant feedback loop.
They're crucial. They provide that steady drip of dopamine reinforcement we talked about. Each completed step tells your brain, this is working, the effort is paying off. It's what keeps you from getting discouraged on a long journey.
We also have to completely change how we think about failure.
You have to start seeing setbacks as just data. They aren't a verdict on your character or your permanent ability. They're just information about what didn't work. When you remove the fear and shame around failure, you become so much more willing to try hard things.
And part of that is celebrating the progress, not just waiting for the final win.
Yes, you have to acknowledge the effort along the way. Celebrate the fact that you had the courage to apply for the job, not just whether you got it. Acknowledge that you stuck to your workout plan for a month. That reinforcement makes the whole process sustainable.
And finally, the most powerful tool of all, connecting the challenge to your purpose, to your why.
When a challenge is linked to one of your core values, whether that's helping your community or mastering a craft you love or providing for your family, the effort stops feeling like a chore. It feels like a meaningful investment of your time and energy. That intrinsic motivation can transform even the most grueling struggle into a cherished part of your life's story. #outro. So this deep dive has shown us that our attraction to difficulty isn't some strange quirk. It's a fundamental part of what makes us human, a mechanism shaped by evolution that's essential for our growth, our resilience, and for finding meaning.
The real power of a challenge isn't just in what you achieve at the end, it's in how it changes you along the way. It builds skills, it boosts confidence, and it reveals a strength and capability inside you that you probably never knew you had. The deepest satisfaction really does come from the process of becoming more.
So as you go about your life, think about this. In every difficulty you choose to take on, there is a promise of a discovery. A discovery about the world, and more importantly, a discovery about yourself and the incredible capacity of the human spirit.
What opportunity for growth, learning, and transformation awaits your courageous engagement next? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.
Like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.